Hi, this is Graphically Alex coming at you with all things fat related. If that's something that interests you, please subscribe. I'd love to have you. So, we are back. We're on day 3. I feel like I'm literally going to have I'm going to have her voice playing in my dreams tonight. Um, it has been interesting to be doing this daily. It's becoming like a daily torture ritual that I'm taking part in, and I hope that you all are enjoying it very much so. I did go to the gym tonight and I was feeling mid, so I just put on me because I just always think of a mid single, and I put it on a mid single and then I just start doing my thing at the gym. And then I had to do it again tonight. I'm grappling with dopamine issues. It's bad. Obracity is starting to surge back. I will say though, before we get started, the wisdom of Charlie XCX. Did you guys know that apples help your body have higher dopamine levels? I had no idea. So I ate a bunch of apples today, and it actually helped. It made a lot of my symptoms feel better from the low dopamine. So that was interesting. And then obviously the gym. So I'm very much, strong, as strong as I can be in my obese state with my lesser D2 receptors being obese, which we love. But Charlie knew all along. She knew. She might be a low dopamine girly pop, but she knew that apples are a way. So, if you're having some issues with dopamine, have some apples. I was shocked. And I tried it, and it worked. So, thumbs up for Charlie. Thumbs up the video for Charlie. Okay, we're going to go ahead and start. And all my joy will die. No, I'm just kidding. I have been getting some DMs from you guys about Anna, and it's a lot. I think she's going to haunt all of our dreams. I'll just put it to you that way.
A whole different world where my weight was seen in just a very different way for the first time in my life. So now I have this beautiful place in social media where people are like,
Okay, so she's talking about body positivity.
you're beautiful, you're special. And we were talking about bigger bodies in a different way. I had lived in this world where I had learned to accept negative preconceived opinions of me and rise above them, which is, again, a great skill, but not super healthy or amazing to live in. And now was presented with a world where I get
Okay, but you're acting like social media was not a choice. Like, you could have quit at any moment if it was really too much, too hot to handle. So, I'm just saying, I know people don't like it when you bring that up, but it is a fact. You can quit. Just like with any job, you can quit. At least in our country, you can. It's only under very specific types of things where you can't, put to you that way. But we can quit here. You could quit. You don't have to do it, Anna. So I don't want to hear it. And I will tell you, your audience doesn't want to hear it. I'm aware enough as a creator. Your audience doesn't want to hear you complaining about this. It's not a good idea.
didn't have to prove anything, or at least it felt like I didn't have to prove anything. And that was, for lack of a better word, addictive. We were right in that crux of body positivity coming to light. So the acceptance of a bigger body was on the way of being more accepted versus less. And so there was a lot of
What year is she talking here?
advocacy, there was a lot of supportive people. Don't get me wrong, still bad people out there saying mean things. That is the internet, but it was definitely a better place. And that space gave me hope in a lot of ways. Hope that I could learn to live in this body and not necessarily constantly be focused on changing that body. And if the body positive community helped me stop.
So I think that this concept of I don't want to change my body or this or that or the other, I understand it from a viewpoint of being super morbidly obese because I used to be. And when you're in that state, it really is that way, because it's it's very hard. I'm just going to say it that way. It's very, very hard. And, but now I think of it more so as like our bodies are always changing. And do we want to be growing or deteriorating? You know, especially there's this one meme I see all the time on Instagram where it's like life after 30, and it's like use age as an excuse and just like quickly deteriorate, or take care, like go to the gym or whatever, take care of yourself and, you know, kind of level up and just kind of take care of yourself and keep continuing to develop or continuing to grow. And I very much view it that way. I think it's so much more positive to view life as a state of constant growth, and being able to divorce that toxic ritualistic mindset of my body, where I don't have to view it as like, especially at this stage, such a severe shift all the time. You know, I'm still not healthy. I'm still obese. I'm very aware of it. I know it needs to change, but compared to where I've been, it's so much less urgent. And although the low dopamine issues make it a huge pitfall, I think, for a lot of people, and a lot of people get very complacent and want to stay in obesity, which I completely understand, as you guys have seen me struggle with the dopamine issues in this stage. Low motivation is a huge factor. I have to literally just keep fighting myself to keep going. But the changes aren't going to be as drastic, really. You know, I'm not going to have like a complete lifestyle shift anymore, right? There might be aesthetic shifts or things like that that are a factor. There's obviously still more health to recover, but it's different. And being in that different position, I can see living life with a constant state of developing the body or developing any other skills, really, including bodily skills, as a natural mode of living that is not disordered whatsoever. It's actually very healthy, as well as being a good steward of my body for the rest of my life and encouraging others to do the same. I think that's a much better way of looking at it, and I think that's how most people look at it. Not all. There is toxic ritualistic on all sides of the spectrum, but I think most people that are trying to be in shape or try to do their thing, they are doing it to take care of themselves, you know. So, anyways,
Measuring my value in a size, and helped me start appreciating what my body was capable of. And
your value on a spiritual level, it's a spiritual question. I don't encourage mixing spiritual concepts with the physical that much. I know it's very common. It happens a lot, but I think if you struggle with toxic ritualistic behaviors, aka E fall by the letter D, try to separate the physical from the spiritual, at least for a while, because it can help you keep things very real. So saying something like, my worth is determined by my size, that your worth is spiritual. It's a spiritual question. So to try to make that based in physical reality, it just doesn't make any sense. It's just not the same. It's like a different part of another conversation. It just doesn't work. And you have to kind of just forget about that, because it's like our bodies are how our bodies are in this time, in this moment. Worth and things like that, like I said, they're spiritual questions. It's probably better addressed in something spiritual or religious or even philosophical if you guys are not interested in that. It's more of a philosophical question at the very least. So I don't appreciate the sort of weird, like, thing of body positivity where it's kind of like astroturfed as like a false or like a fake religion, basically, or like a caricature of a religion, aka cult, which some of you guys say. And I try not to be that harsh all the time, but I understand why it comes across that way, especially, fat acceptance. She's referring to it as body positivity, but I've told you, I believe they've kind of controlled that term. They've taken it over. So I don't really see them as that different. But I think when I don't think getting philosophical or spiritual answers from the body positivity movement it's not a good idea. That's not really what it was for. It was just for like kind of accepting where you're at, and then you have to kind of see where you're going to go from there. But I guess she took it as like, her moral compass or something, which I don't think is good. That's all I'm trying to say. It's just weird. It's weird to me.
And I will always be grateful for that. That said, my time in that community did cause some harm. And I think that that's really hard to say because I don't want people to feel betrayed or hurt or like I'm biting the hand that fed me. But there's a lot of things in that community that make going to the doctor or even doing basic everyday things scary. There's a lot of discussion about how the medical community doesn't support fat bodies, which is true in a lot of instances.
Okay. She's doing a very interesting dynamic right now where she's trying to dance on a line, very thin, very fine line, where she's trying to kind of have her cake and eat it too when it comes to this stuff. You can be somewhat neutral on topics. I do think people can. But when you say something like it led to harm, that does denote that they're wrong. So you have to kind of describe how they're wrong. I think that she struggled with, again, going to this as a sort of spiritual movement, which it is not one. And then it lets her down because, again, that's not really what it was for. Then she's like, oh, blah, 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 Then it becomes this weird thing. And now she's trying to have these conversations, and it's like, ugh,
But it doesn't mean that all medical professionals are out to get plus size people. Also, there was a lot of discussion about it's okay to take a break. It's okay to be tired, which, again, a valuable insight into life. But I began to feel like, oh, being tired is just part of a bigger body. Being exhausted, being in pain, these things are just normal because I am plus size.
Okay. Where are you going with this?
So it began to write a script for me that this was just my reality. And this is the reality I had to live in. And I just got, for lack of a better word, shitty cards.
Yeah, that's basically what fat acceptance teaches you. So she's upset with what fat acceptance taught her, which I think it's important to understand that she's not. I don't think Anna has ever been super fat acceptance-y. Her basic struggle is E followed by the letter D. That's what it is. And so while the logic may be the same, she may have started to feel that it was possibly even bringing her back or getting her in deeper. Not bringing her back, but bringing her back to her worst moments with it. Because you have to remember, people don't always, their struggle with it is not always a 10 out of 10. It kind of, it phases in and out until you finally cut off the root of it. There are times where it's kind of like, I'm kind of okay. I'm kind of coasting. And then there's times where it's like, I'm really insane over this. And so I think maybe she was kind of in one of those upper waves and it was dragging her back down to the depths. And so I think that's why she struggled with it, because part of the disorder is a need for control. And I think she wanted to continue to have that experience be a private experience for her that her and her alone could control. So I think I think that's where it came from. And that's why I think she's talking about it in this way where it doesn't make sense and she's really straddling different lines. That's my opinion on what she's saying here.
There's nothing I could do.
This is a great segue into a question about when you started to think about perhaps your size as a more medical issue, if there were something else beyond just your size that was causing you to feel tired and everything that you just described.
I'm going to be really, really candid about all of this. This is a podcast, so we're just going to be real, right? I hadn't had a normal poop for years, and it was beginning to affect my ability to do basic everyday things. And I would get so exhausted on top of this. Sorry, I just said the poop because I was like, that was the thing that like broke the camel's back. But it would also be things like I would go and have a great day. Like,
okay, I'm guessing she's meaning. I'm going to see if she explains a little more. Let's see.
I did all of these things. I'm like, man, my body's amazing. I can do all of these things. And then I would pass out. Ooh. And I would physically be unable to leave my bed. Like,
okay, I'm suspecting, I could be wrong. She's not really being super candid. She's like, I'm going to be so candid, but then she's not. We're going to say it here. I'm wondering if she's talking about like diarrhea. Okay, when you have an E followed by the letter D, you can cause yourself to have like IBS and things like that. Also, you can exacerbate or make things like hypothyroidism worse, right? Or you can even, I believe in my case, I created my hypothyroidism through the disorder. And that can make you feel like you want to pass out through low blood pressure and just a lot of different things. Plus, who knows what else was going on, right? But you have to remember the types of condition, like that disorder, it will make everything worse. So if she is kind of hypo, is going to make it worse. And then if she's hypo, being hypo will make everything else she has worse. It's like these things kind of compound onto each other, which again, most people who are super morbidly obese, they have a form of hypothyroidism literally just because of the estrogen on your body from the excess fat. Estrogen opposes thyroid hormone. That's why I talk about it a lot, especially within a super morbidly obese context. Now, you may not have those symptoms at all if you're very young. If you're like 20 and you're super morbidly obese, you might be okay. But 25 and plus, it's much more likely, especially if you've been that size for a long time, that you're going to at least have symptoms. Even if you're producing the hormone is being outcompeted by the excess estrogen. So again, weight is important. Health at every size doesn't exist. And these hormone issues, they are very obvious when you're really, really, really big. So when she's talking about all this stuff, I'm like, okay, so that's making it worse. That's making it worse, right? The actual E followed by the letter D will cause a lot of those digestive issues, which again, she keeps betraying it. If that's what she was talking about, which I'm pretty sure that's what she's talking about. I have a feeling. But it's like you have all these compounding factors, plus the actual just being that size. It's exhausting. It makes it hard to breathe, especially the older you get. You get hypoventilation, sleeping issues, sleep apnea, right? Like things like that. It can affect your ability to fit onto furniture or fit into things. Like, it can affect a lot of stuff. Like, when you're at her level, it's a lot. So obviously she was kind of facing those reality checks of like, I'm really not doing well because of everything I'm doing. And I think she kind of had her oh shit moment, basically. And I speculate, or I suppose, that women can handle obesity longer, especially, you know, like supermorbid obesity or obesity and all these types of things. I think women's bodies can handle it longer because they can tolerate the excess estrogen better, whereas I think men have a much faster decline. So while she had her oh shit moment probably much later than I did, I had my oh shit moment at 28. She probably, well, technically it was 25. It was pretty young. And then it just got drastically worse. And it's like, oh my God, at 28, right? It was just horrible. Whew. But for her, it was later. So it sounds to me like she was having that oh shit moment where I always talk to you guys about, where it's like, you're fine until you're not. And as I said, you get these little warning signs and then they go away and you think, okay, it's fine again. And then you get a warning sign again and then it goes away and you're like, okay, I'm fine. And then your health just collapses. That's how it works. It's kind of like a bridge. It just falls. So, and for me, that happened at 28, but I had a lot of foreshocks from 25 onward. So you have to be, yeah, it's hard to be delusional when you start to hit that wall, but it does come for you, especially if you're doing the toxic ritualistic behaviors and all those things. It will come for you, period. Very much so. Probably even a bit faster. But even being super morbidly obese, it's like, even if you didn't have that issue, I still think it would probably hit you the same. It's a lot. For those of you guys who have never been that, it's a lot. It is a lot.
Everything in my body would just break down. And I would be stuck that way for 2 to 3 days. I would have gastrointestinal issues. I sometimes would be vomiting. I would be violently ill.
Yeah. I think a lot of those digestive issues, they might be side effects from the behaviors. Because I had that too, and it lasted. I didn't throw up, but I had a lot of, I'll just say it, diarrhea for a long time. I think I literally never didn't. At least basically the first 2 years of recovery. And then it would just kind of come and go, and it's a lot better now. It doesn't really happen unless if I have like a bunch of apple juice or something, which I think that would happen to anybody. But there was a long time where it was all the time, and I wondered if it would ever get better. And it did. It did. It takes years, you guys. Like, those of you guys who are really severe, if you guys are watching, it takes years to recover, but you can. But it takes a long time. So I don't have those issues anymore. There's a lot of stuff with being super morbidly obese. You tend to have like lower stomach acid as well, so it makes SIBO easier to get, which can be more, diarrhea-ish. But it sounds to me like she's throwing up on top of it and she's doing all this stuff. I think it has to do with the behavior she was doing, if we're going to be honest. Which, she's blatantly denied it within the span of this podcast, but the evidence is there. I'm telling you, you can fool somebody that hasn't been there, Anna, but I know it. You can't fool me. I know exactly what you're talking about. So, all I can say to offer hope is it gets better. Like, if you stop, your system will recover and your brain will recover. It will recover, but you have to there is, of course, some permanent damage or whatever, but you recover a lot more than you think you're going to. I'll put it to you that way. Drastically more than what you think. So, you have to just stop. Stop the behavior.
I started struggling to get out of bed just in general. And I kept pushing myself physically because around this point, I
Fight to stop. Fight it like hell. Fight it. Fight it. And you will win.
started to feel in my body really broken down. So as I'm in this community, I just kept thinking, oh, the reason my knee hurts is because I'm fatter. The reason my ankle hurts is because I'm fatter. The reason my thighs hurt are because I'm fatter. The reason I'm tired is because I'm fatter. The reason when I stand up, I almost pass out is because I'm fatter. All of these things just became related to the weight, and that's just how my body was.
Well, I had a lot of those symptoms too. And I can tell you, I don't have lipedema. But I was super morbidly obese. I would have that feeling a lot where I would stand up and my heart would just race. And I could feel like my blood pressure going really, really high from standing and it was like, and then you kind of see black and stuff, like when I'd get up to go to the bathroom, like in the middle of the night or something. It was horrible. It was so scary. It was really scary. A lot of that stuff is really scary. So it's just, again, I try not to think about it all that much because it's in my past, but I'll never forget, that first year I didn't know if I was going to make it. I'll put it to you that way. It's a lot. It's very hard. And recovery is a bitch. And I just remember like summer of 2021, I would just cry and cry and cry. And I was just like, it's like I'm not doing this stuff anymore, and I'm not getting any benefit from not doing it. And it was just so hard to accept. And I just had to tell myself, like, you're not doing this anymore. Like, you can't. You've done it so many times and it never did anything. Like, you're never going to get anywhere. You're on a treadmill. It's like, I would tell myself these things, and I had just snapped out of it, honestly. It was just done. It was over. But I still had to white knuckle it in 2021. But there was a lot of times where I felt like I was getting worse. And I don't think I was getting worse. I think I was just getting more and more into the reality of the state of my body. And it was horrible. And it did pass, obviously, because I did a lot of stuff at once. Like, I was really working on my diet and stuff and my thyroid. I made a complete lifestyle change for my thyroid health. Part of that was like going outside a lot and stuff. Like, I hadn't been outside all of 2020. Some of it was like I moved back in with my mom because I was so isolated. So I attacked it at every single level on a completely holistic level. And I was extremely strict. I was very careful about any chemical exposure, as much as I could be. And I was so strict. Like, I always talk about polyunsaturated fatty acids, and I talk about like the seed oils and stuff a lot on my channel because it's really important to understand that if you're hypo. It's super, super, super important. And I was so severely hypo, I couldn't even tolerate chicken. I could only have beef because chicken was too high in those fatty acids. So it was tough. I was so hungry. I was so exhausted all the time. Like I said, I get up to stand to go to the bathroom or something. My heart is racing. That feeling in your body, like, it's like a buzzing in your body. Like, I couldn't sleep till like 5 a.m. I mean, it was bad. I can't even list all this stuff. I had sleep apnea and I would wake up and stuff. So I had to like I used to call it the Tower of Pillows and stuff. And it was horrible, just on every level. It was awful. And that was all during the pandemic still. And so obviously I knew like I was really scared of getting it and not being able to survive because I was in such a bad shape. Like I was in such terrible shape anyways. But at the same time, I couldn't live that way anymore either. So I had to kind of just make these constant decisions, and everything was so heavy in my life at that point where it's like, I don't know if this is going to be okay. I don't know if that's going to be okay. And I just devoted my life basically to my thyroid health. And, you know, a lot of people kind of they've made fun of me before, like because in 2023, it was all I talked about. Honestly, it was the top priority because I had to get it under control, or I wasn't going to make it, basically. So once that shifted, I told you guys, like, I pursued my thyroid health to such an extent that when that was no longer the most important thing, because I had reached a level where it was going to be okay, or like it was okay, I had an identity crisis because I didn't know what to do. And then I just had to start catching up on everything. And that was like around mid 2023 where I had finally gotten out of a severe state thyroid wise. Even though I still, in the winter of 2024, it still went back down again, but it rebounded fast and stuff. It was hard. It was really hard. But again, I don't think that is going to be a typical experience for most people because, like, you have to understand, like, I was super morbidly obese for over 10 years. I was toxically ritualistic, severely so, for probably at least that same 10, it was a little more. It was like 10, 11 years still. And then I'm also male. So if you think of all those layered on top, that's a very severe, severe, severe thing that most people are not going to have that experience. So that's why it was so crazy. But again, I did get out, but I had to be so careful. And when she's talking like this, it's reminding me of that time where I had to be. And then now it's not nearly as bad as it used to be. Like, I don't even think about that stuff anymore. Really. You hardly ever hear me talk about it on the channel. I mean, I still talk about thyroid health because it's really important, and I'm always going to be a pro-thyroid girly pop for the rest of my life. I will never take it for granted again, like I did, you know, for all those years. But, you know, I just have a much more normal experience now. I still have issues, but it's nothing compared to that stuff. It was horrible. And even 2022, I was so fucking sick still. But I, at least in that year, I got back to like my baseline sick, you know. I remember I went to California, and one of my friends, because I'm from California, and I traveled there for my birthday. And my friend was like, it's like you've never left. And it was like, I don't think she understood how much that meant to me, because it's like I had not changed in her eyes, and I had been through such a harrowing health experience over 2020 and 2021 that it was an honor to hear that I hadn't changed. I had restored myself back to how I was, which how I was crap. Let's be real. I was still super morbidly obese, but I was back to normal. I didn't fear dying. And I just knew it was a serious issue, and I had to really work at it because it was still urgent. Because I knew it was still, when you're that big, you can really fall fast. Like, you have to really get your shit together, honestly. So I was still, it was my top priority still. But yeah, I mean, that 2021, man, it was one for the history books. 2020 as well, one for the history books. Those 2 years were so horrible. I just can't. But she's talking about stuff that's making me think of 2021. That's how bad it sounds. So, anyways, I know that was kind of a lot, but whew.
Was. And so I initially pretended like a lot of those things didn't exist. I think when it became
But
really clear, I have one moment.
I hope you guys can see why I really fight this issue, because I had no idea all that shit was waiting for me at 28. I didn't. I didn't take it seriously. I didn't care about it. I never even considered it. And I know a lot of these fat activists, they feel the same way. And I feel like I've stared into the eye of Sauron. I have seen the future. And I'm like trying to warn. And that's us, that's one of the major reasons why I started this activism. Because it's like somebody has to be saying something. And somebody, and people are saying things, but I think it's a little bit different when you've been there. Because it's just kind of different. And I don't think there was enough people that had been that big that had gotten out or, whatever. So, anyways, let's continue.
When I remember, that is the moment where I realized I couldn't live like this anymore. I was in Hawaii. We were filming swimsuits or something, as one does as a creator. And I couldn't walk in the sand. It hurt so bad. Yeah. And there's a video of me somewhere, I'd burn it if I could, where I fall into the sand and I just cry. And then I scream, "Turn the effing camera off. I don't want anyone to see me like this. I'm so ashamed." And I was this person who represented someone who loves their body. And I was at war with my body. And in that moment, I was like, I am such a liar. And I think that moment is where I was like, I need to make some changes. And I did not share that with the internet right away. I never shared that specific moment with the internet because it was too personal. I sometimes wonder if I've hurt people. As a creator in the body positivity space, I parroted a lot of the same messages that everybody else did. Love your body, indulge in what you want. Life is short. Don't feel like you need to have this health standard. And that line of thinking at a very high level isn't wrong, right? But I often wonder if I have driven people to not.
It is wrong. Let's just make that clear. I don't know what the hell she's even saying there. Okay, I think the indulge in whatever you want all the time mindset, that's stupid. No. Sorry. Somebody's got to be an adult and say, no. No. Apparently the doctor's not going to say that, so I'll say it.
Not seek health. And I wonder if there's people who listened to me, who believed in me, who followed.
There might be. I at least, I never wanted people to do what I was doing. I think I knew it was wrong deep down. I know there were times where I pressured people to do a certain diet or things like that, where I was, doing body monitoring and things, of that nature and a lot of stuff like that. But I didn't talk about it all that much. It was very private for me. It was a very private thing, which I think is more common for most people with it. So I just kind of did it, and there was a point where I a part of my recovery where I would kind of engage in BINGing, like with a friend present and stuff like that to kind of, and I remember I would literally, I guess I can just say I would go out to eat like with Eric, and I would just eat and eat and eat and eat. And I would just talk to him and be like, this is how I actually eat. I know why I'm fat. I don't really want to talk about it. But I understand that this is why I'm really fat. And I don't think he really needed to hear me say that. It was more so I needed to say it, and I needed to kind of start to make it less private. That I didn't put it online and all that. I didn't do all that. I mean, let's not get too crazy, right? But for me, it helped me to just be like, this is how I am. And there was a time where we were both struggling a little bit at the same time, where he was kind of being overly restrictive and I was being the opposite. And I remember we were both like more aware, and we were like, I told him, I was like, I know that what I'm doing is wrong. You know what you're doing is wrong, but let's not talk about it. But let's be real about it, you know? So I think within a certain stage of recovery, that can be helpful. Which I don't think he was fully going all up in that, but I think it was a slight relapse on his part. Which I only talk about it because I know he won't care. He doesn't care about that. I even have a video with him where he talked about his experience with that, if you guys are interested in that. It's the first one I did. I did it in 2023. There's like a weird 90s background because I looked like, I don't know, I had really long hair. It was extra. But anyways, I think part of recovery is just being like, I'm doing this. I know it's wrong. And I know that it's causing an effect on my weight. And I did talk about it later online, a couple years later, where I called into a show and I was talking about it. And I was like, yeah, I have B, E, followed by E, followed by D. And I was like, and I've been eating 7,500 calories a day for the past 2 months. And I know why I'm big and blah, blah, blah. So at that point, it's not that I wasn't ashamed of it. I knew it was a problem, but I was aware of it. And I could at least be honest with people. And I think that that's hard for people to do a lot of the time. And I certainly could never have done that when I was younger. Never. So that I was definitely taking steps towards recovery. And that was like 2018. And like I told you guys, I stopped in 2020. So it was getting towards the end, but it really was ramping up in a lot of ways too. It was hard. It was like fighting a demon. It was hard. And for me, it was kind of like it was darkest before. The shadow was getting bigger as I was getting closer to the light. It was very hard. And I kind of grieve that time a lot. I did a lot, especially last year. I don't do it as much now because I'm kind of moving past it, but I just grieve for those years because it's like, gosh, luckily I stopped in time, but it's like in the nick of time. Telling you, and you don't want to do that. So I just I'm just really glad I got out, but there was a lot of regret for those years too. It's hard, but I fought it like hell for 6 years. So And it ended. It ended finally. And now it's like I'm really, really like physically recovered, or like I'm much better physically. And it's so weird to just be like, this is all behind me now. Just live your life. Be a normal girly pop now. And I'm like, okay. But it's a little weird, you know? Because I have mostly moved past it, but it is a weird experience. This year has been strange so far. I'll put it to you that way.
And are worse off because of it. And so part of the reason I share a lot about my health journey is because I have that guilt. And that guilt is going to follow me forever. And I did it unintentionally, and I did it because I myself was broken. But I believe that there has to be this space where we can acknowledge that bodies come in different shapes and sizes, while at the same time acknowledge that just because your body doesn't fit a certain shape doesn't mean you should not care how you feel. It's a really complicated conversation.
I think she's doing a lot of mental gymnastics where she's trying to hold on to the disorder. And I've told you guys, when people are in the thick of it, the biggest goal that they have on a subconscious level is to not get rid of the disorder. That is the one thing they do not want to do. And so she's twisting her mind in pretzels, and she's doing all this stuff where she's trying to make her experiences that so clearly show that what she's doing is wrong. She's trying to find a middle ground, which is very common in this disorder, because you'll see it a lot. I point it out all the time with a lot of fat activists that are vegan, for example. So it's this idea, well, I'm taking this middle path. I'm eating healthier because I'm vegan, so I'm not going to die from eating so much. It's a lie. It's a delusion. But it's kind of common, and I think she's trying to do that. I've heard some of you guys talk about it on the channel, and I agree with you. She does that with protein. If it's protein, then it's okay, no matter what. No matter what kind of protein it is, no matter what, it doesn't matter because it's protein, you know. So that's very much her kind of middling path. And then she's thinking, like, if I do all these medical interventions, then I don't have to stop the behavior, and I can continue to go along. And I don't have an answer for people who are so deeply in it, who do not want to recover. I don't know. I don't know how to help those people. I really, really don't. And if there are any medical professionals listening to this, like, please look into that, because I have no idea what to do in terms of an intervention for this kind of thing. Because it's very difficult. But like I said, I will be your albatross if you're trying to get out of this. I will do my best to help in any way that I can by sharing my experience. But it's like, I can really only help people who don't want to do it anymore. But understanding that recovery can take years. You know, it doesn't have to be as long as mine. I was a very severe case, so don't be hopeless about it. But yeah, anyways, gosh, this is like very heavy. So I'm like, I didn't expect to go this deep. But I think when she talks about things, it really makes me think of a lot of stuff. So I do appreciate this, Anna, even if you're going to be the voice in my nightmares.
And it is very nuanced, and there are a lot of very angry voices in it. And I understand why they're angry, right? I get that anger because I've been there, and I, in a lot of ways, in some ways, I'm still there. But the messaging is at times causing the same problems it's trying to prevent.
I know what she's talking about.
I don't know if I'll ever be smart enough or eloquent enough to fully explain that dichotomy, but it is a community that saved me, but also a community that broke me. And that is a really, really difficult thing to explain.
I want to share with you something that my mentor told me.
Okay. I think there's a lot of cognitive dissonance in that statement. Like I said, due to the fact that she's trying to, ultimately, her main goal is to maintain the disorder. So everything else will be thrown to the wayside for that. And that's what I think a lot of people who have never had this, they don't understand that. But that's, I think, what she's trying to do. It doesn't make sense. There's the logical, this group saved me, but they broke me. That doesn't make any sense. It doesn't. But it's something that she's just saying so that it's like, I can get out of this because I can do this stuff that I want, but then I can also continue the disorder. And that's kind of what I think that kind of like nonlinear thinking, or like that thought process of the disorder that she's having, because she wants to continue it, basically. So I don't know if that makes sense to you guys, but that's what I'm hearing with that. Is it doesn't matter what I'm saying right now. I'm just going to say this to try to get people off my back so that I don't have to change, basically. Because if she did really come out against fat acceptance or body positivity, or, whatever, again, they're kind of the same thing. Fat acceptance took over body positivity, okay? So it's difficult, and you don't really know what somebody's saying when they're saying body positivity. It depends. But basically, if she threw all that out and she said, no, it was wrong to indulge in everything, it was wrong to do this, or it was wrong to do that, or da-da-da-da-da-da-da, then she has to look at the disorder. But she doesn't want to. She doesn't want to have any awareness of it. And being aware of it is a major step in recovery, but she's not there at all, and she's very far along. So it's concerning. And I think a lot of you guys can kind of feel the delusion, or you can feel that, like, what the heck? It's disturbing. But just remember, it is a mental health issue. It is actually delusional. And ultimately, it's sad. It does come from trauma. And it seems like her trauma may be severe, and that's sad. But she's still very toxic. And she's lying, and she's doing all this stuff. So it's like, I can't make excuses for her either, because it's not really an excuse, because she's not pursuing any kind of recovery, or she isn't doing any kind of introspection either on this issue, in my opinion. She's not. So it's to me, that's a hard line to kind of, that's a tightrope, I guess, to walk on, in saying, not making any excuses for her, but also understanding it is a severe issue, but she's not looking to recover at all. So I don't know really how to look at it. I don't judge her as like a freak of nature, but I also don't see her as somebody who is trying to be their best. I'll put it to you that way. She's somebody, in my opinion, that is holding on to this very, very severe thing for dear life, and there are almost no signs of her looking to let it go. It's just, it's something that, it's like she does things and it just gets buried deeper and deeper and deeper as the years go. And that's where we get the tragic ending a lot of the time. And of course, I am always rooting for people. And I understand, because like I said, I rode that wave as long as I could. Maybe for me it was better in a certain way, that it was faster because I saw it, you know, and I was able to catch it just in time. But for other people, maybe if it's just a slow, you know, a frog slowly boiling type of thing, because I can tell you guys, like, the mindset I had, it's like I probably would have rode that forever, you know. But because it's really hard when you have a false recovery too, like, or when you think you have a handle on it but you don't. Like, for me, that's how 2019 was. Like, I really thought I was getting better and I wasn't. So it's kind of sneaky too. It's hard, but ultimately the biggest thing is, are you taking part in the behaviors? And I was. And I think that's where we have to be honest if we're in recovery. Am I still doing the behaviors? Am I eating because of anxiety? Is it something bad happens in my life and then I have to eat and eat and eat and eat and eat because something bad happened? Because if so, you're still in it. But if something really bad happens and you don't, then you know that you're out. And for me, that came in 2023 when I got dumped and I had a car accident at the same time. And nothing changed. My diet didn't change at all. I had planned, it was in April, which is spring, obviously. And I told you guys about the winter and stuff and the seasonal aspects of hypo. And it was spring and it was time to go. And it didn't matter what happened. I had to go because that was the time. And so I did it. You know, I could do it with a broken heart. You know, I had a Swiftie gay moment. Probably at the same time as Taylor, actually, because she probably wrote that song around the same time, because I was like weird dumped twins with Taylor. It was weird. That was really weird. Where her relationship fell apart and then mine did really soon after. That was weird. But the point is, I knew that I had recovered because it was tested and I had done the work. Like, I was very stressed in the years prior, but that was like a major one. And I feel like you guys kind of know what I mean, where it's like there's a difference between those like daily stressors of life, or like difficult, like financial difficulty and all this stuff. And, you know, oh, I don't know if I'm going to pay the rent. I don't know, you know, like all that stress that was really prevalent in 2022. And I never did it throughout the whole time. So I think I kind of worked up to the big one. And that was the big one. And because I had all that practice, so to speak, of continuing to not engage in those behaviors, I could continue. I had the strength, and I knew I was totally recovered, because that was a major trigger that absolutely would have sent me on an episode in previous years, and it didn't happen. And that's how you know you're out. You know you're out when things are bad and you still don't do it. That's how you know. Okay? Okay. I think I'm going to go ahead and leave it there. This one kind of went deep. Again, I like some of these podcasts. Like, this one is actually a good one because I can cover a lot of different topics within this format. And this one's interesting because it's really, really about the disorder and obesity itself. So I appreciate this. So I will be back tomorrow. I hope that all that haunts you in your dreams. Like, it's going to haunt me. I'm going to hear Anna's laugh. One of you guys in the DMs was like, her laugh is the stuff of nightmares. I'm going to hear her laugh in my dreams tonight. But with that, you guys, I'm going to go. Thank you so much for watching. I'll be back tomorrow. I'm going to do this until it's done. Until either you guys go insane or I go insane. Probably me. But we're going to continue. I'll see you later. Bye.